you doing here? Huh? Good job. Come back. Hey, where do you think you're going? Keep going. You better not to come in, man. What are you doing over here? All right. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? What a guy. You doing this up first? Come on. Hey, what are you doing? Come on. Hey, what are you doing? Shit. What the fuck? Get out!
Hey, let go.
Go on the grass, keep going, keep going!
Elbow him. Get him in the balls, get him in the balls. Hey, let go. Get out of there, Oliver.
Hi, Tony Blauer. I'd like to welcome you to the tape on Alive Drills. Alive drills are unchoreographed, unrehearsed drills. This gets back to the concept we discussed in the first tape about consent. Majority of people work with choreographed or consenting drills. That means you know what's going on and everyone cooperates with each other. In an Alive drill, what you want is a real sense of reality. That means distance, timing, footwork, contact. They all have to be real, and you can't know what your opponent's doing. At the same time, there are parameters that we establish, meaning you're working on your back fist or you're working on your tie kick. But it's alive in the sense that the contact and the degree of impact and the shifting and the footwork and all of that is spontaneous, and that's important. If you're doing things where you're pulling stuff or it's a grab and the guy lets his hands go on a lapel grab, you're not learning. Most people, for example, in a choking situation, never have their partner choke them, okay? And that means you never learn what it's like to be choked. You have to look for the most realistic approach for every drill that you do. If you're in the ring, if you're doing focus mitt, try and make it as realistic as possible. Both guys moving, footwork, feeding. If a guy's getting lazy with his hand, hit him in the head. You have to do that, and that way you can experience reality and make every drill as functional and as pragmatic as possible. So enjoy the tape.
Welcome back. This first drill that we're going to do is called the jab drill. And what you do here is you alternate jabs. It's full sparring, but for some reason you got to imagine that you're not allowed to use any other technique except a jab. And because we're wearing the equipment, you're actually trying to hit the person. Start off slowly, warm up the muscles. You're actually going for contact. You're not trying to separate the person's head from their shoulders, but you're just trying to make this snapping, stinging contact. We use 16 and 18 ounce gloves, so there's virtually no risk of injury. And with this special headgear, there's absolutely no risk of injury for the nose or the eyes. You're only allowed to punch one at a time. That means as soon as I throw a punch, my partner's allowed to throw a punch. The moment it leaves, he's open. You see that? Right in there. The second he leaves, he's open. So you're going to work that, slipping inside, outside, linear, lateral movement. Keep the footwork. Be elusive. Shouldn't be an ego drill. It should be a timing drill where you develop your movement, snapping the jab, slipping skills. It's kind of a relaxing drill. It's a great way to warm up. We do this quite a bit at the school. It's also very popular at seminars. You see in slow motion, you can see how a person can read the punch, makes the slip. What you want to do is while we're doing stuff in slow motion, pick out the techniques that you're learning, that you're trying to develop. Inside slip, linear movement, where the jab's coming, where the rhythm break is happening. That's the stuff you want to pick up on, because that's all the strategy that often eludes most fighters. You don't want to go in there like rock'em sock'em robots. Become a thinking fighter. In any of our drills, when it's obvious you're going to hit the guy, we pull the shot. You make contact. Like I said, you don't have to introduce the back of his head to his back. Just snap it in there, know that you got in. He knows it, you know it. When you use good equipment, you bring a new dimension to your training. Dimension of reality and actual movement without cooperation. It's important to work isolation drills to break down all of the parts of the puzzle until you can put it back together and get a complete picture of fighting. You can do isolation drills with every technique. Now we're incorporating tie kick with the jab drill. So this is just a variation of the jab drill, but you're allowed to throw a tie kick counter instead of the jab. The purpose of this is to develop that diffused vision that we talked about in tape 1. One of the important strategies. You got to see what the guy's feet are doing. You can't be locked in boxing mode all the time or in kicking mode. Once again, you can see it's a tame drill, but it's alive, so you're developing realistic instincts, realistic intuition. And you're playing on that. Doesn't have to be hard. Keep the ego somewhere else. Don't bring it to the school. Don't bring it to your workouts. Watch the footwork. Watch when the jabs come in. You can see if someone goes to set up a kick, he leaves his head open. You want to learn to develop the monitoring instinct that guards against that. You're watching the tape. Try and guess when a tie kick's coming out or when a jab's coming out. If the fighter can surprise you on tape, he's going to surprise you in the street or in the ring. It's especially valuable to watch it in slow-mo. You can see how that tie kick, it wouldn't be blocked because it came in after the jab came in. Use your opponent's movement to disguise your counters, or to camouflage them, I should say, like that. The kick comes in underneath his punch. He cannot evade or block or counter while he's doing something else. Once again, this is just one type of isolation drill. You can work elbows, you can work it with reverse punches, you can work it with knees, and do whatever you want. It's the concept we're looking for here. That's what I've tried to strive and go for with these tapes, is to develop thinking fighters who are going to pick up and apply the concepts to their own systems. If you hit someone with the back of your wrist, like a praying mantis strike, with your fingertips, with your elbow, with your forearm, with your head, it doesn't matter. If it gets in, great. I'm just trying to offer some new ideas for types of drills. You can see there's a lot of control in the drills, but you can also see the powerful potential if a shot was really let go. What's good about the isolation drill is it forces you to jump back after your technique and not to get sloppy and think you move in. You'll notice I'll always hop away after I get a tie kick in or a jab. See, I jump away there because I know that it's his turn to strike. It's one of the rules of the alternate isolation drill. That's the type of stuff you want to look for. Now we're working some of the combinations using the techniques we learned in the arsenal tape. There's a lead front kick to the shin, so we can kick with a little bit of force, put on shin guards. This is actually called the range entry drill. So you work from kicking range to boxing range and trying to move into trapping range with the body hooks and the elbows.
Good.
And the reason we go for power here is because it interrupts your balance. It really upsets it. You have to move, you have to chase your opponent, and you're also trying to strike with some power. Start it off slowly and build it up. You got to get used to each other's rhythm, and then you try to move from there. Move up in speed from there.
Go.
Remember, this isn't a street fight here. I'm not simulating a street fight. You're working trying to put the range entry together. Lead front kick to the shin. It's just a distraction. Get the guy to think down. Hit him with a jab, hit him with the 1-2. Charge, couple of body hooks, finish him off with a couple of elbow strikes. You can see how the momentum threw me forward there. If you're always practicing with a controlled, choreographed drill, you're not going to experience falling off balance or the resistance of a shin. So by working all of these things here, with power, with speed, with resistance, you develop what I kind of coined a muscle confusion principle, which means your body doesn't become habituated into doing the same thing all the time. And so your recovery is that much faster when something doesn't go right. See, the faster you go, the sloppier you go, but the technique stays pretty close to the original technique in the arsenal tape. But the harder and faster you go, the more stress, the less technique. Once again, this drill is just a principle. You can use any technique to change things around, put on all sorts of weird equipment, and do whatever you want with it. This is a hubot drill from the Filipino systems. We do it slightly different. Block it more with an outside block and kind of roll into all sorts of things here. This is just a light controlled drill with no real contact. We do get into heavier contact later on. Sensitivity is very, very important. A lot of people at seminars and at the school don't understand the actual importance of doing this. They think it looks neat and they'd like to do it, but it's very, very important because it develops an understanding of energy flow and pressures, how to negate them, how to redirect them, how to release them, how to tie your opponent up, how not to oppose force with force. So you work on controlling the neck here, which is something we discussed in the first tape. You'll see a lot of the stuff here that we discussed in the first tape on psychology and tactics. And you try all sorts of weird things. You don't want to get locked into a specific drill, although you would obviously have to learn some base and then experiment from there. You're not trying to hurt each other here. You're just trying to stay loose and just play with the movement. You see how we roll in with the knees, with the headbutts. It's getting into boxing. And if you watch the fingertips closely, you'll see that it's pretty loose. You don't want tension in this. Working sensitivity is one of the most important elements that you can practice for your fighting, and unfortunately, very few systems work this. This is the most common range, trapping range. This is where all street fights happen. So if you're not familiar with redirecting a force and working in this close, which is grabbing and shoving range, then you really haven't worked the street. I mean, when you think about it, boxing range is boxing range and kicking range is pretty far, and grappling, well, we don't lie down in the street together and then go, let's fight. It has to go somewhere. It's got to start somewhere. And this is where it starts, with that sudden grab, that sudden shove, the guy jumping in from boxing range. In slow motion, you can see some of the looseness in the fingers, how they move. And rather than getting caught up in trying to do a drill, just throw things at the guy. See if he's really responding to energy changes and resistance changes. So if someone grabs you, or goes to knee you, or goes to headbutt you, are you moving with it? Are you negating his advance? Sensitivity isn't magic. A lot of people are confused by it. But if you consider that we're all made up of electrons, and just think of the contact as an electrical contact. And through that contact, you try to read your opponent's movement. If he applies pressure, you angle it away. If he moves back, you fill that void. When I'm training, I try to function like a vacuum. And every time someone throws a technique, they create a vacuum for a counterattack. You make a move somewhere else, you leave a hole somewhere else, and you should be shooting in that vacuum. Keep the drill controlled, but keep it aggressive and keep it spontaneous. This next drill is just a slow finishing drill where you have someone attack you randomly, slowly, and you just employ any tactic you want. Try and get inside and smother the person. The reason you want to work this slowly is to develop an instinct for balance, which shots go where, which techniques come out most naturally. Every time you shift to avoid something, you reduce or negate the use of one of the weapons. And so you want to go to the next obvious weapon. So it can't always be the same counter, which is why I discourage working this counter and that counter. Counter number 1 against the lapel grab. Number 2 against the bear hug. You want to try and surprise yourself. Throw in some kicks, throw in some punches, throw in slashing back fists, throw in a jab. This is the same drill from another angle. Just have the guy randomly attack you slowly. You're just trying to control the center line. Hands come up the center line, and I'm just moving the counters. Because his movement and your movement's a surprise, you're just working on instinct. If I told the guy, grab me like this, I will do this, then I'll try this technique and that technique and A and B and C. It becomes robotic, and I fixate on that. And when you fixate on stuff in the street, you don't do too well. Here we're working from the natural stance, that submissive strategy discussed in tape 1, the hands up. I'm just trying to throw all the different elements of the arsenal in. By working this, you develop the complete arsenal. You don't develop what I consider a bond to a particular technique. You don't want to have favorites because you don't know how it's going to happen in the street. Guy's not going to line up on your good side for you. Now we work it against slow and medium with equipment on. And then we'll work into some fast stuff. You got to realize that the stuff isn't choreographed and it's not posed. So if it looks like it's working like that, that's just because the training has been done right. So you're developing fluidity and spontaneity. Now here we're moving fast, and you have to experience. You got to get in front of someone. You got to try this at a seminar if you have the chance to do a seminar, or to come up to Montreal to the school, or if you can implement this stuff in your own school. You got to experience how fast this stuff happens. You don't have time to react. You make that grab. If the guy's on top of you, boom, that's it. See, in reality, when someone grabs you, they're not expecting you to do something. Otherwise, he wouldn't have grabbed you. No one's going to go, oh, isn't that Tony Blauer? He does Chufendo. Let's grab him. Someone's going to attack me. They're going to be a little more intelligent than just putting their hands on me. And the same thing goes for you or anyone else. Notice, although I'm hitting the guy with sharp shots, I'm not trying to knock him out. You don't punch right through the guy's head. You just go for speed and contact. So it's non-cooperative, it's alive, it's spontaneous. But it's not that psychotic. You want the guy to be back the next day to work with you again. So you still have to have some control. That's why we use all this equipment. It brings it closer to reality, and then we can still train the next day. Notice the center line control. The guy comes in with the grab. We don't usually always work grabs and shoves. This is a very strange looking drill. It's called the third base coach drill. And what I'm doing here is kind of just moving my hands all over my body and just doing weird stuff. And he attacks me at any time. And I've got to do the center line control, tie him up. You might be asking, well, so what? What's the purpose? Well, when you're standing in a stance, you're focusing on what you're going to do, whether you think you are or not. You're going, well, I'll bong sow, and then I'll tan sow, and then I'll pack sow. But when your hands are like this, and you don't know when the guy's coming in, you got to react very spontaneously from where you are. So it's actually one of the more beneficial drills because it really, really forces that spontaneity. And it teaches you that you can make a move from anywhere. You don't have to be in position. Notice I walk around, I'm off balance, I get my hands all over the place. And I don't know what grab he's coming in with. And you just go, that center line control, boom, you're inside up the center line. And technically that's the fight. Don't do this drill in public because people will phone 911. You discover all sorts of interesting techniques doing this type of thing. You also find out how predictable you are, whether you do the same thing over and over again. Our biggest problem is we all have favorite techniques. And sometimes those favorite techniques just aren't in position in the street. You want to develop variety to be safe. If you watch this carefully in slow motion, very interesting to see how the hands are seemingly out of position. I know at a few seminars and sometimes during class I'll stop at that moment and ask people what they think of this position, and someone will stick their hand up and go, well, that's bad, you're out of position. I want you to get out of thinking of good and bad in the street. Think of desirable or less desirable. Every technique is like a link in a chain, and sometimes you need a long chain to tie the guy up, and sometimes it's done in one link. So there's no good or bad moves. Everything works and everything's attached, and you want to keep that flow happening. That's where sensitivity is invaluable. Once again, I urge you, do not do this in public. They'll lock you up. This demonstrates centerline shifting and centerline control. What we do here is we let the attack happen, and then you slide, you kind of snake your hands up around inside your opponent, grab hold of his neck, get him off balance, and shift your centerline simultaneously. It's important to have him grab at bizarre angles, because what we're going to do is blindfold me, which you want to get into eventually, so you can't see where to go. So you feel, just by sensitivity, the angle of his hand. So he grabs straight forward and you get right in there. Now he's resisting to a degree here. And remember, it's just an isolation drill. Did you notice there he grabbed one hand low, one hand high? So although I'm working the same move, I'm working that centerline control and centerline shift. Watch if his hands go in different places. You're still making the move. It's still accurate and effective. A lot of times you want to keep your eye on your opponent. You don't want to specifically look at where his finger went or where his foot went. So using the sensitivity, you develop a feel for where he is and you respond accordingly. This drill also develops a kind of calmness, because a lot of times someone will charge in with a grab or a shove. You don't want to react right away necessarily. It'd be nice if you did, but oftentimes we're not prepared to react right away. So here you're working another aspect, and that's where the guy has grabbed you, he shoved you up against the wall or something, or a car, and then you make your move. You can see from this position, I can get into grappling, punching, trapping. I have good control on the opponent. When you have your opponent's neck, you can feel every single move he can do. You can stop a kick or a punch. Neck control is very, very important. I like the idea of hitting someone and holding on to him at the same time. You don't know whether he's still going to be there after, and you want to know where he is by holding on to him. So if you pop him and it doesn't drop him and you've let go of him, he might pull out a weapon, you might be able to re-engage, so you want to know where he is. Stay in trapping range if you can. People are very uncomfortable there. In this drill, this is called the designated hitter drill. It's a 3-on-1 situation where the guys decide beforehand who's going to attack. Now, I have no idea who's going to attack here. You watch my eyes and you'll see where I respond when I try to outflank the guys. That means I want to get their attacker between them. See, I'm keeping my eyes on the other guys. Neck control, get them in between. Get him down. Now it's 2 against 1. This is just another variation, a little bit faster. He's allowed to grab me any way he wants. And you're just making the move, getting that control. You want to smother the person. What you do is unimportant, as long as you're blanketing your attacker with your attack or counterattack. Just have the guy waltz in there, have him grab you however he wants, let him shove you. You just make your moves. You want to realize in the street is there's three levels of psychology: surprise, suspicion, and certainty. And all these drills deal with certainty or suspicion. That means I know that there's going to be some sort of attack, and so I'm waiting for it. I'm using the submissive strategy. In a real surprise attack, you can't really do much. So you see here that I'm waiting. If you remember in the psychology tape, in tape number 1, I talked about diffusing the fight verbally. So we're assuming that that's happened. The guy still wants the piece of me, still wants to hassle me. I've already gone, look man, I don't want to fight. And then he steps in again, and I've decided to flick the switch, the on-off switch. Here I let the guy grab me. And then bang, right into the eyes. Notice I'm not preparing. You can pick that out in slow motion. I'm not preparing what I'm going to do. Why? Good question. Because I don't know how he's going to grab me. So my hands stay relaxed, and then they move instinctively to fend off his attack. Watch my fingers. Watch my hands. They move at the last possible second, just as his hand's moving into my critical zone. Watch the hands. See? It's a very deflecting movement. I want to keep my energy loose. Occasionally, I let someone just grab me just to see if they're really making a move towards me. Oftentimes, your opponent unwittingly just cooperates with you and doesn't really give you real energy to work with. So you want to test him from time to time. You see how that works beautifully. You just deflect him, boom, he falls right in, you're behind him. This is the Hubut drill with headgear and elbow pads and gloves. So now you can strike to the face with elbows, straight punch, and headbutt. Just keeps you a little more on guard. The drill slows down a little bit because you're moving with a lot more tension. You know that if you stay loose, the guy's going to blast through. So it's important to work all your techniques on many levels, getting back to that muscle confusion principle. Don't get them used to something. They'll go to sleep on you. You don't know when someone's attacking you with brute force or when someone's going to kind of slink their way into an attack and sucker punch you. So you want to experience all of that. You can see the benefit of using equipment here. You make your drill a little bit more realistic. I really don't like the idea of pulling shots and punching outside someone's face. And don't misconstrue what I mean by pulling. There's a difference between pulling a shot so that it makes no contact and pulling a shot so that you don't give brain damage to someone. I'm obviously not talking about the first one. So with these plexiglass helmets and with the elbow pads, you can get in a good shot. This is one of the more advanced
don't
drills.
Stop there, I'm gonna fucking hit you.
It's called the sucker punch drill. Now all I have on is a mouth guard here, and this guy's told to throw any type of combination he wants, as many as he wants. And I can only deflect the
hit.
shot, or
Punch,
slip,
man.
or bob and weave. I'm not allowed to strike him. And I'm telling him and trying to incite him, and try and piss the guy off, and get him to try and take your head off, so that you learn to react to a sucker punch. Now, I hate to make excuses, but I hurt my knee here, so a lot of the movement is a little stiff. You can see that in my left leg, but you can see with stuff like that how important the slipping, the bobbing and the weaving, the parrying is. Just having a little bit of footwork, you got a guy trying to headhunt, and you can burn him out. This guy's not going to last that long. And of course, there are many opportunities for me to intercept a shot like that, to take him into grappling. Strike his groin when you're down. But all you're trying to do here is trying to develop what I call separated sensitivity. Generally speaking, sensitivity is when there's contact. When separated sensitivity is trying to read from his hip and feet and shoulders and his sternum where he's going to go with the shot.
Okay guys, why don't you two do your regular boxing? I want you to use your kicks. If you get inside in a clinch and you move in here, there's a point for an elbow. And you get your headbutt and get your knee, then back off, get right back into your boxing there. Okay? So we can go to grappling, but keep it. I want to see punching and kicking when you have the opportunity. Take it to grappling. Any questions? Kick gloves.
Okay, this is just full contact sparring.
Go. Don't run from each
You
other.
guys are allowed to
Make
do
moves.
anything they want, as you heard.
Only back when you punch down. Snap your punches. Don't run away from each other. Try and force the counter. You don't learn to fight by running. Force the counter.
These shots are real, they're fast, they're hard. Sometimes people look at our stuff and they go, well, why doesn't he fall down? We do so much conditioning at our school that, I mean, some of my students are just one big callus.
Right in. Get right in there. Right in again. Move in. Don't back
You
off.
see
Don't
the
back
high
off.
kicks and the counters and the uppercuts.
That's it. Get into grappling. Get into the grapple. Take him down if you can.
You hear me screaming in the background to get them to do stuff. You want to, as a good coach,
Get your foot behind him.
is
Sweep
give them
him.
ideas. People need ideas to work with.
Sweep,
You want to
guys.
encourage people,
Get in
move
there,
them
get
into
your leg
different
wrapped
ranges.
around him. Take him down. Take him down. Go down, someone.
But you
your
see,
leg
the
behind
instinct
him, man.
isn't
Come
to
on,
go.
let's
I'm calling for them to go down, go down. I want them to work into grappling because people avoid it, because
Tackle
it's the
him,
most
Oliver.
grueling range.
Get your leg
Very
behind
few
him,
people
man.
know
Take
how to
him down.
grapple, even fewer know how to trap.
Go, kick him. What are you waiting for, man?
You can see me egging them on. I'm trying to keep them going. You need to pump them up. Kind of like Dundee does in the corner with Sugar Ray Leonard. The guy's tired, it's the 14th round. You gotta be in there. You gotta egg them on. But at the same time, you gotta be careful no one gets hurt.
Stand up in the front, kick him light in the face, Dan. Stand up in front, kick him in the face, Dan.
You're making suggestions for the guy to get up and kick him. He missed that moment. You want to try and... We videotape all our sparring and all our panic attacks. When we do seminars, we bring a video camera. Everyone sees what they did.
So what's going on? Boxing, kicking, grappling, move inside. When you get on the ground and grapple, I'm going to call break, and you're going to get up. But I want fighting, full out, okay? Watch the knees. Tap gloves. Go. Stay in this area. Take him down when you can. Take him down.
Now, I consider this sparring sloppy in terms of technique, but this is real fighting.
Okay, break. Stand up. Right away, right away. Hold it.
Don't delude yourselves.
Go. Move down. Move down.
Learn about street fighting by really fighting. If you need the equipment, you need a program to develop the conditioning, to modify your
Take him
techniques.
down. Take him down.
My regular students who study the Chu Fen system don't spar like this all the time, you know? We work a lot of boxing, we work a lot of kicking, we do forms, we do all sorts of stuff. But we also experience this.
Nice box.
You see the hard tie kick that got in there? Didn't do anything. But this is real fighting. And it's exhausting. I've done seminars where I've had black belts with 10 years experience go up against each other. And you don't see a punch or kick thrown. They do the panic attack, and all it is they rush in and they freak and they get into grappling range and they just try and kill each other from that range. You don't see anything from, 10 years each training. You don't see any martial arts. Which means there's a definite void in everyone's training, unless you're doing this sort of stuff. But you got to be careful, especially outdoor. Watch out for rocks, for glass, for tree stumps. And when we do this realistic stuff, I'm always nearby, or there's always a monitor there. You got to watch out for people hyperventilating in masks and in choking and situations like that. You don't want anyone to get hurt. Remember, there's no excuse for negligence. The human body's very resilient, so you can do stuff like this. And if you don't think a real fight will look like this, just have someone videotape you and just go all out with someone with equipment on. Well, this about concludes the 4th tape, and I hope you check out the panic attack tapes and you'll see some pretty wild stuff. So, looking forward to explaining a little bit more about the panic attack in tape 5. See you then.